What's up, my brothers? One thing I want to ask you now as a One Piece fan, do you think it could happen that Zoro becomes stronger than Ruffy? We have to consider that Zoro is now in possession of the King's Haki, and even the extended King's Shaki, and is even the natural enemy, i.e. swords, of Ruffy. Even back then, there were these debates about whether Zoro was or could become stronger than Ruffy. I mean, he was the first one who could really hurt Kaido badly on the roof. He was the first one Kaido was forced to dodge. So out of all the supernova that were up there on the roof, including Ruffy, Zoro was the first one who could scare Kaido. Even Big Mom was really shocked when she saw Zoro's attack coming. Such an attack that would even make the strongest creature in the world sweat. What would this attack do to Ruffy? Say what you will, but hey, I think those attacks could even put a Ruffy to sleep for a brief moment. Sure, Ruffy is stronger right now, but what could the consequences be, and could it happen? And now hold on, Zoro will eventually go and challenge his captain. Even if you're now thinking, no, that can't be. Zoro stands for loyalty. He'd do anything for his captain. I'm afraid I have to disappoint you a little, because it's more likely than you think. Because Zoro's prerequisite for respect is strength, and there were a few moments that proved that. Let's go back to Lysop's departure from the gang. When Ruffy misbehaved, Zoro thumped his tail on the table. He got extremely angry and even disrespected Ruffy. He even said that he would leave the gang himself if Ruffy didn't do the right thing now. In other words, even though Zoro is loyalty personified, he's only loyal to his captain. If he no longer sees his captain as a captain, i.e. no longer respects him, then he is no longer loyal, which doesn't have to be the case. Zoro also said on Fishman's Island when Ruffy used the King Shaki, "That's the least I expect from my captain. Otherwise, he couldn't be my captain." So here we are again, making it clear and certain, and Oda emphasizes with this expression, if Ruffy is not stronger, then Zoro will not recognize him as captain, and thus will no longer have any respect or loyalty. So the premise is that Zoro must always be weaker than Ruffy in order to have loyalty. I was lying in bed the other night asking myself this question, hey, wait a minute, what if Zoro somehow loses respect to Ruffy? I'm sure if Zoro had realized that time with Sanji, where Sanji punches his captain in two, he would have killed Sanji first, and then challenged Ruffy for not proving the man, and showing his crew members who's boss. Zoro is simply an alpha, and therefore his captain has to be even more alpha. Believe me, Zoro would have cut Sanji to pieces back then if he had seen that. It's funny to know that he still has no idea what happened back then. Feel free to write in the comments. Do you think it's plausible that at some point Zoro realizes something, or maybe realizes after Ruffy loses, hey, I could have won that fight. I'm questioning right now if you can be my captain at all. I'm challenging you. Sure, it seems so unbelievable to us because Zoro is just so loyal, but you really have to understand that this loyalty comes from Ruffy's strength. Of course they're friends too, but Zoro said himself that if he was stronger, Ruffy couldn't be his captain. But let's assume it comes to this fight. What would this fight actually look like? I have to admit, I'm a bit of a Zoro fanboy, but let's put the facts on the table so that nobody here can say you're just a Zoro fanboy. Zoro has become really strong after Wano Kuni. He possesses the King's Haki, and even the extended King's Haki. Even though the armor Haki is now very strong in One Piece, swords are still one of Luffy's weaknesses. Zoro was even able to do a lot of damage to Kaido, a character with the fiercest defense we know in One Piece. I mentioned at the beginning what kind of attack power this character has because Kaido and Big Mom were really scared when they saw these powerful attacks from Zoro. I'd say Luffy doesn't have as strong a defense as Kaido. If an attack like that really hits Luffy, since it's also his weakness, it could hurt Luffy a lot. You have to understand, even though Haki plays a very big role, if Zoro's attack gets through the Haki, Luffy's body is still made of rubber, so Luffy would take more damage than a normal human. I'm not saying it has to come to this fight at some point, or that it will come to this extent, but if it did, it wouldn't be an easy fight for Luffy. Oda even proved that to us again, and I'm going to demonstrate it to you here. Luffy defeated Rob Lucci, and did so relatively easily. He fooled around a lot. Of course, that's part of his fighting style, but we all know it wasn't really difficult for Luffy to defeat Rob Lucci. That's when a lot of people criticized Zoro for only getting weak characters and not being able to shine. But that changed very quickly, because Zoro had the honor of working on Rob Lucci again. Our greenhead simply put this character to sleep. He worked on him and even did trick shots. He threw his sword in the air, caught it again, and then gave Rob Lucci the finish. Rob Lucci was so mesmerized the brother thought he had to go all Whitebeard and die standing up. It was very funny to see all the memes. What I'm getting at is that Oda is clearly emphasizing here, hey, look what Luffy did here, Zoro can do too. So, the two don't take much from each other. And please guys, don't hate. I know that Luffy is stronger. If there are people who think Zoro is stronger, write it in the comments. I want to discuss with you, but I just have to be honest, little by little. Now, after Wano Kuni, I don't think there's that much between these two characters. So, believe me, when it comes to a fight, it's going to be a very interesting fight. It could even go as far as Luffy winning, but really having to push himself to his limits. Why I think Zoro might have the better cards in the fight is Luffy's character. Luffy will have trouble giving 100% in a fight against Zoro. Even with Sanji, he struggled to use any fighting moves at all. Now imagine him having to fight Zoro, his best friend. I can imagine that he builds up a mental inhibition there, and therefore can't give 100%. But Zoro, friends, no, this guy is a badass. He doesn't care who is standing there. If it's not his captain anymore, then he gives 100% and will do anything to beat that person. For that reason, I think it could even be that this fight pushes Luffy to his limits. I mean, even Lysop somehow managed to push Luffy to his limits back then. Even Lysop, you have to realize that first. This fight is going to be more interesting than you think, friends. My personal opinion is that there won't be a fight on this scale in One Piece, but I think at some point in the story Oda will show us another conflict between Zoro and Luffy. There will come a moment when Zoro will have to question his captain's authority again, because Zoro is the right-hand man, and every decision is controlled by him. Just like with Lysop back then, he would criticize the next decisions he disagrees with. In other words, it's very likely that at some point in the story, Zoro will again say, "What's the point? I'm not behind that, and you can't be my captain like that." Then there could be a conflict, possibly even an exchange of blows, which I would find very cool, because that would strengthen the bond between Zoro and Luffy even more. But why I think it won't come to a huge fight between the two is, we're out of time, friends. We see that Oda is speeding up the One Piece story, and I don't mean that what he's doing is bad. I mean that we're doing a lot in a short amount of time. We see that something important happens in every chapter and every panel. Oda realizes that we don't have that much time left. He also said that One Piece will only last 4 to 5 years. So where should we squeeze in events like this? There's a lot more to come in the story that's much more important. The past, the story with Joyboy, the final war, Luffy's bond with his father, what will happen to Garp, what will happen to the admirals, the fight against Akainu. I could go on until this video is 40 minutes long. There are so many things that need to be dealt with, so many different plots. The conflict in the Straw Hats wouldn't be the best thing. The Straw Hats have already established themselves and are a gang. Family. It could be possible. It would even be very plausible, but I don't think Oda will insert something like that the way the story is going at the moment. The story went differently. We knew that One Piece would go on for maybe another 10 to 15 years. Then I could put my hand in the fire that there would even be a fight between the two. But this way, I think there might just be a conflict, or maybe even just an argument. Of course, it could also be that none of that happens, but I'm sure it would be a very cool plot. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think Zoro is much weaker than Luffy? Or do you think they don't take much from each other? It's a very interesting debate. I'm not a power scaler and I don't want to be, but a power ranking of the two would be interesting. The whole thing could even change after Egghead Island. We don't know what else Zoro will do on Egghead Island, how the fights against the Gorosei will be, and what the fight against Mihawk will be like. What else will happen in the future could always vary. I look forward to seeing what clues Oda will give us, but that's all from me for now. Please leave a like, a subscription, and a comment to support me. It means a lot to me. And friends, I read every comment. I remember your names. Let's build a community and get through these last few years of One Piece together. That's all from me for now. Peace out, your Rayyl.